This podcast sheds light on the incredible stories of those who served and are now navigating civilian life. Join me as we explore the challenges, triumphs, and unique perspectives of transitioning veterans. From career shifts to mental health, we cover everything. Subscribe now and amplify the voices of our heroes. Amplify Veterans, where every story matters. Great starting point to introduce the guest of this episode, Mathius Carter. Mathius spent time in the Army, 4 years in the Army. He's here today to talk about his story, the book that he wrote, and the Road Home program. So, Mathius, I'm going to let you go ahead and take the floor, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Nick, for having me on here. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I've been sick recently, but I'm getting better. I'm on the upswing, so that's good. But,
All good.
but yeah, I was in the Army. Really enjoyed my time. For the most part, I think that's kind of like a consensus for a lot of us. I would say the good outweighed the bad. But definitely, I spent some time in Germany and Poland and got to travel a lot. Unfortunately, I was young and I didn't really get to appreciate where I was and what I was doing. But a lot of fun. And then I went to Iraq in 2003. Yeah, starting off, I joined the military right out of high school. You know, one of those where the parents had to sign you in. So I was 17 and started like 1 month. August 1st, I started of 2001. So a month before September 11th happened. So it's definitely different when I think about the younger veterans that, or the younger service members that join. You know, joining after the war, you know, you know 100% that you're getting deployed. At the time, I was lucky enough to have a very smart dad, and he didn't let me think that I was just going to go in for college and everything was going to be like roses. He said, we tend to get into something every 10 years. So, you know, you're probably going to end up having to go somewhere. So I wasn't blindsided, but obviously I think we all were blindsided with what happened, but it was definitely different. I was at Fort Knox, you know, we're doing area beautification, which I'm sure you can relate to,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
for
so
sure.
for people out
Glorified
there.
janitor services.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had to make sure that the grass didn't get this close to the street, so it had to have a gap. So I got to do that, and then the first sergeant comes over and says we've been attacked, and I just remember it being the most eerie feeling where there's no planes in the sky when you're used to seeing planes all over. So, but but yeah, so I went
Super
to Iraq
scary.
in 2003. I was a multi-channel transmission systems operator. So when people hear that, they're like, "Wow, what'd you do?" I dug holes and put up concertina wire just like everybody else. But no, we provided a network for like a signal corps. So I was signal corps, and we provided ways for the infantry to call backup. So I got to see how what we did affected everybody else. But then there were times that, you know, for the last 6 months, I was on top of a mountain on the border of Syria, and we didn't get to see. But the entire time we were up there, the 101st didn't get attacked, so we knew what we were doing was impactful, which was great.
It sounds like you guys were serving a pretty important purpose up there. How's the food up there?
We ate MREs. I'll tell a short story. It was one of the trigger points for the longest time because it was one of those things where I really didn't like sharing the story because it was such a buildup, and then there was no like release. So I never talked about it because, you know, I'm surrounded by veterans that, you know, like a lot of the things that bother them are huge. And, you know, me telling this story, I felt kind of like, I don't know, shame or guilt or something that it's not a big deal, but it still bothers me. You know, and it bothered me more than getting shot at and bombs landing near me and stuff. But it was the first time we got to eat hot food in Iraq, and they brought up the Miramites, those big containers full of the hot water with the food sitting on it. But I'm sure they prepared it early in the morning. And by the time it got up to the top of the mountain by us, it was in that temperature danger zone for way too long. And there was 9 of us on top of the mountain, and all of us got sick. And there were only 2 like bathrooms where we just basically made a little shelter on top of the metal cans, and everybody else had to use the ground or outside or whatever. And then it started to rain, so everything turned to muck. And so the sun went down, everything's raining. I lost the shoe in the muck. I mean, it's up to your calves, it felt like.
Oh
And
man.
everyone's sick from both ends. And then you see the trip flares start going off. So you heard the tripwire first, because we had the tripwire and then we had the trip flares. And for people that don't know about tripwire, it's like basically like a square grid. And it's big enough where you can put your foot in, no problem. But if you try to take your foot out, you're hitting it. And as soon as you hit it, it goes like that and goes all the way across the whole land that you put the wire out. And it's a weird sound. I don't know what to prepare to. Kind of like really loud crickets. I don't remember too much, but it's a weird sound. So we heard that and we were kind of alerted. And then you see the trip flares go off. And I was a saw gunner, so I had a squad automatic weapon, the machine gun. So I jump into my pit, and with one shoe, no gear on, no helmets, no no nothing. As I'm pretty sure I had a Hulk T-shirt and Corona pants and a beard. I'm pretty, so I'm
Wow.
in there with my saw, and I don't see anything. So I'm waiting for another trip flare to go off. It goes off. I don't see anything. So then I'm like, at the time, I wasn't scared. You can't really be scared too much when you're out there. But thinking back, I was terrified, I'm sure. But so in my head, because I couldn't see anything, I assumed they were behind me or to my sides where I couldn't see because of my pit. And so I was just hoping that someone else has my back, like that's when you really have to rely on your brothers. And so fast forward, it was a fox, and that's why I never told this story because it was like all this buildup. And I learned from going through therapy for years that it's kind of like a battery. So batteries don't make power, they store power. And the reason it kept bothering me is because I stored all this power, but I never used it. I never got to release the power. And sometimes it actually is, I think, a little more therapeutic, I guess. I don't know, but I don't know how to word it because I'm not a clinician. But I heard it's better when something happens that you have that firefighter, you have that back and forth, so you release all that energy. But because of these little things that ended up turning into nothing that I never wanted to share because I was kind of embarrassed, that like I went through this and it wasn't a big deal. It actually bothered me. So there were like some triggers. So like for Thanksgiving food, I couldn't eat it for about a decade without throwing up. I
Man.
didn't want to be around it. All the food separately was fine, but all of it together was horrible.
Yeah, but that's again, I think that's a really good example of there's so many different levels of trauma and excitement and stress that come into play, and you can't belittle any of it, and it all affects you up here. So I
For sure.
appreciate you sharing that for sure.
I was surprised I wanted to, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
thanks for going there.
after the military, I started college. 2 weeks later, so I just jumped right into school, and I was trying my best to study and to do everything I wanted to, do everything right. Mostly because I was like, well, if I don't study, I'm going to have to go back in the military, and I was kind of done at that point. And so 2 weeks in, I'm having a hard time focusing, even though I'm trying. And so I went to the doctor thinking maybe I had ADHD because I was like always on the edge. I'm always looking around, things startle me. I didn't know what PTSD was. So I went to the doctor, said, I think I have maybe adult ADHD. So they started asking me questions and they were like, well, tell me, do you see halos when you drive at night around the lights? And I said, yeah. And then they were like, tell me how you sleep. I was like, I sleep like everyone else. I sleep with my clothes on top of my bed. And for me, that was normal. And I didn't really put it together for a long time that wasn't normal, but that was something that, we had to do because we had to be able to jump out real quick. So, so like I was talking to her about this, the nurse, and she was like, I think you have PTSD. And that was the first time I heard that. So I started my journey trying to get help in like 2009. And it was just like, it was one of those things that now that I work in the type of field where I see it and I hear about it all the time, I understand it, and I wish I would have been able to go back and tell myself, but obviously I didn't have anybody to lean on that knew. And but I didn't know it was really like a bell-shaped curve, kind of, like you start talking about your trauma, you start working on it, and it gets harder and harder and harder, and then it kind of plateaus, and then it gets a little better. And so I would try to get help until it got hard, until some things start coming up. And I was like, nope, not doing it. Because I would do an hour session and then go sit in my car for an hour and just cry. And I couldn't handle it. And so I didn't know what to do. So I would get a little help and then I would stop. I just went back and forth and back and forth. And then, so fast forward after college and everything, I started working at a bank. I started moving up pretty quick at the bank. I think my hypervigilance and all of that really, really helped me in the banking setting, which was hilarious because everyone was like, "You're so attentive. You're." As soon as someone walks into the building, they're there, and it was because I was like that, and I would make sure I would greet them, I would talk to them because I just wanted to make sure they weren't a threat. But when my management saw that all the time, they just thought I was like a very good employee. So I got promoted really quick, and I ended up being a VP at the bank. Um, but then when I moved back to my childhood town, Cary, and it was an hour and a half or so travel, and I couldn't do it. I didn't want to, so I told them I was going to resign, and they didn't want me to, so they found me a job closer. But then they laid off. I think like maybe a couple months later, they laid off a whole bunch of people, and I was the last one in that district, so I was the first one to go, and I was okay with it. But so I went back to school, and I was just trying to figure out my life again. Anytime I can't figure it out, I just go back to school and collect degrees. So,
Yeah, me
but
too.
yeah, so it's fun, and then I just throw them in a box. So, but after the bank, I um, I got reached out to by an executive director at a nonprofit organization. She was like, "Would you ever consider helping veterans?" And I was like, "Yeah, I would love to." So I got out. I had an MBA. I worked in finance. So I got out of that arena and went into being a case manager. Just thrown into being a case manager for a nonprofit, like I said, that helped homeless vets. So I was excited. And because of my background, they thought I would be able to connect with these veterans without being a clinician, which I was able to do. But because I wasn't getting help myself, I was sharing my story over and over again. And it was just bringing up more and more. And just it was getting heavier and heavier. And the last year I worked there, we had 3 suicides in 1 year on people that were in my caseload, and they were, I'm a younger dad. I've got a little boy, and these service members that took their own lives had little kids, and they were roughly my age, and I was like, why, how, what happened? And it was just really, really heavy. And then one of my buddies that I served in Iraq with, that I just recently connected with at that point, we were going back and forth. After I saw him again, he called on my name we had this meeting for like the American Legion for like the region or something. And I heard my last name, and nobody calls me Carter, and nobody ever calls me that. Everyone calls me Mathius now. And so I heard Carter. I looked, and the last time I saw him, I was in war with him. And so I went up and we hugged, and I didn't understand why everyone was making such a big deal about this. They were taking pictures and all this, and I didn't know he was going through something. They didn't tell me until after he took his own life. But yeah, so he ended up taking his own life like shortly afterward, and that was kind of that breaking point for me. And being a vet and having good jobs and things like that, you have insurance, but I'm just like, I'm so used to the VA. I like the VA. I don't want to use public insurance, whatever it's called, regular people insurance. So I'm just used to using the VA. So when I needed their help, finally, I reached out, and, nobody was there. It took 2 months to get an intake. And so I remembered there was an outreach coordinator that used to come to one of the groups that I would run on Wednesday nights. We just did a group for camaraderie, and I got restaurants in the area to sponsor it and pay for the food. And we just played bags and hung out, and it was a lot of fun. but she would come and talk about road home program. And at the time, I was like, that's cool. Another resource is always good to know, but I'm okay. I don't need anybody's help. And so after the VA was taking so long, I couldn't wait. When you're in a dark place, you don't have 2 months to wait. And so I reached out to her name was Ashton, and so I was like Ashton, I know Road Home does something to help vets. I never really listened too much when you talk. I was just messing with her, but I'm like, can you tell me what they do? I need help. I need to talk to someone like as soon as possible. So within an hour, I got an intake, and by the next day, I was able to get help. And so Road Home program saved my life. So I was very, very grateful at the clinicians and just the way that everything was run at Road Home program and their ability to like just get there quick, and that's what you need. It's not it will not replace like if you're having like you need help immediately. It's not something like that. You probably would want to go to the ER or something like that. But if you're just having a rough time and you want to talk to someone as soon as possible, and you can hang in there for a little bit, road home program is amazing, absolutely amazing. And so I started working there, and so 1 or 2 weeks into it, they one of the things that Road Home program, what we do as outreach coordinators is, we reach out to organizations and make sure that they understand what Road Home program does, and then we also set up tables at like events, sporting events, veteran events, basically anything, kind of meet them where they are, sort of scenarios. And so we try to set up tables and have information out and kind of explain what we do. And we give out tchotchkes and bracelets and all T-shirts and everything.
Oh yeah.
And I'm sure you have a T-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah. No, not yet. I need to get
I'll
one.
get out of here. I'll get you one.
Yeah.
But
Thank you.
yeah, so this one, the first one I was ever going to go to, they said, you can bring your son. Fantastic. So my son was 4. So this was last year. And he loves riding on my shoulders. And I swear I'll let that kid ride on my shoulders till he's 15 if he wants, even though I've got a bad back. I don't care. And people make fun of me, but I'm like, one day he won't want to, man.
Right.
So he was riding my shoulders. We had everything set up. And the person that was running the Chicago Wolves Military Appreciation Day came up and he said, have you seen the opening number for the Wolves game? And I said, no. And I've never been to a hockey game. And he's like, oh my gosh, we spent so much money on this. You need to see it. So he's like, bring your son. So we went right up to the glass, right in the front, and they start, the mascot comes out and they do pyrotechnics and then fireworks left and right and just a lot of fireworks. And thinking back at it, I was amazed that they would do that with a stadium full of veterans and active duty or whomever. And but at the time, I was like, bye. So I tried to turn around and leave. And my son was like, no, Daddy, I want to watch it. And my son never got this. He never saw me with any of my PTSD issues. I try to shield that from him as much as possible.
Right.
And so I'm a dad first. So I kind of just like braced against the wall. But I mean, it was the worst panic attack I had in 15 years, man.
Mm.
And it was with my kid on my shoulders. So I had to figure out so after that, walked back to the table and my boss saw me, the one that got me to Road Home program, Ashton. And she was like, are you okay? And I said, no, absolutely not. And she like took over. She started talking to my son, asking him his favorite animals and all these questions just to make sure that he got his attention away from me. Yeah. And I got some water and I was okay. And when I calmed down a little bit, I told her, I'm like, how the hell am I going to work in this type of job when I'm, tell people to get help when I'm a poster child for someone that needs help. And, she told me that it's good for people to see that someone can have, I mean, I don't agree with it, but someone that can have their stuff together, but also they can fall, and it shows that it's okay. Everyone's a work in progress. And that was something that it took me a long time to understand that is okay. There's no perfection, it's just making sure that you're a work in progress and you just continue to work on it. So So I mean, I absolutely love Road Home program. And so what we do for veterans, just so I make sure that we talk about it,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so Road Home program is a nonprofit through Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. So you're talking about one of the top medical centers in the country. And so Road Home is the nonprofit part of that. And so what they do is they are one of the four academic medical centers that comprise the Warrior Care Network. They're our major donor, and the Warrior Care Network's from Wounded Warrior Project. So with Wounded Warrior Project, we help every veteran out there. So anywhere in the world. So basically, if any veteran that even served, a day in the military has had military sexual trauma, if they have anxiety, depression, post traumatic stress, any of that, we can help. And our main bread and butter, the thing that we're known for nationally, is our intensive outpatient program. So our outpatient program, um, it's I heard about it when I started, and I wish I would have just listened a little more because they told me about it, and I was like, oh no, it doesn't sound like something I want to do. But now that I know about it, I was like, man, they would have taken away so much of my time trying to build. And that's the hard part too, is that the normal outpatient program that people do, just outpatient, um, just normal once a week. I try to equate all of this to if you're working out once a week, you might see results. I don't know. I don't know how many years it would take to see results if you work out once a week, right? But if you do
Tough.
basic training, you're going to see results fast. It's going to be really tough. There's going to be some time you wish, like you weren't doing it, but you build that camaraderie with everybody. You're in it together. It is hard, but you basically love the results at the end, and that's exactly what our program is. So it's 6 months to a year's worth of mental health in 10 days, and so we do individual and group therapy. We do mindfulness, which Nick, I'm not dumb, but I heard that word a lot. But when I started working there, I was like looking around. I was like, "What's mindfulness mean?" Because I didn't know, and I think it's probably normal for a lot of guys to maybe not know because it's not ingrained in us. Like we're providers. And being a man, being a father, being a veteran, those are all groups of people that it seems like it's not easy for us to open up, and then kind of when we do, there's not a huge audience there to receive.
That's
You
right.
know, and we're so busy caring about everybody else that we don't care about ourselves. And that was what was explained to me. They said, well, mindfulness, what we see with a lot of service members is they care a lot about other people, but not too much about themselves. And I was like, whoa. If that wasn't a light bulb right at that moment, that I was like, holy cow. I thought I was alone, and that made me feel a little better. But so they do mindfulness, they do art therapy. So I like my little story about art therapy. It's like, so Nick, Hallmark, right?
Oh yeah.
So have you ever gone to Hallmark and just looked through the cards and just found that perfect card that explains exactly how you feel inside?
Sometimes I find
Oh,
that card. Yeah.
so so when I walked into this art therapy room, it was like the most beautiful, painful room I've ever seen. And what the service members are given is a plaster mask, just a blank plaster mask. And the clinician, the art therapist, she says, she basically gives them carte blanche to do a lot of things, but the theme is on the outside of the mask, you know, depict how you think society sees you, and on the inside, how you see yourself. And it was like walking into a Hallmark, and every single thing you pick up explains exactly how you feel inside. It was impactful, and pretty sure I lost it.
Yeah.
I'm not too upset about losing it. I cry a lot, and I'm okay with it. If
Yeah.
anything, it just makes it better because I have allergies. So then my eyes are always moist.
Yeah. That's all you gotta just I'm just allergic right now. No, but I love that you're able to get vulnerable like that. And you're not trying to just be a tough guy or just walk through life without showing any tears. you're a very real human being, and you're full of emotion, and it's good, healthy emotion. So I appreciate
Yes.
that about you. Yeah.
And that was something that I had to learn too. And I learned it from my executive director is friends with I don't know if he's a counselor or he's a principal, but he's something important at this school and high school. And so when I met him, he was telling us he wanted Road Home program to go and speak to the school. And one thing I learned, which I didn't know, is when we went in there and we shared stories, and but when we left, that's when everything happened. And so when we left, the kids reached out for help. And what I learned, like you said, being vulnerable, and that's why I'm okay with it, and that's why I like doing these kind of things, is sometimes it takes somebody that you view as strong to be vulnerable in order for you to get help. So it's pretty amazing. Like I have a family member that was in Vietnam. When he got back, he just stayed on his farm and he kind of just stayed to himself. And when he knew I was going to Iraq and things like that, when I got back, the advice he told my dad to tell me was, he wanted to talk to me. So we went up there to drove 8 hours to Minnesota and sat down with him and we shared stories and he opened up, which he's never done to anybody. And I shared some stories and, he said, if I can give you any advice, it'd be to reach out for help. And he didn't just tell me, he actually led by example. So that was the first time since, Vietnam that he actually reached out for help. So now he's doing amazing. And he's able to go into public. He's back with his family. Like he's spending time with his family, all this other stuff. And so I needed to see something like that, in order to see this person I see as strong. Because, a lot of the younger vets, the reason why it's so acceptable for us to get help is because of the Vietnam veterans. I mean, they just threw themselves into family, threw themselves into work, and they were very good, most of them, in what they did for work because they kind of just hunkered down and just did it. But now that they're retiring and they're reaching out for help and things, it's just a good example for us to continue as well.
That's right. My gosh, I come from a family background that is very stay in your head. Don't share. Don't be vulnerable. Being a son of a Marine who rarely ever expresses himself in that way. I don't have a great relationship with my father, and I think that's a big part of it. So it affected me going through life not being able to see that side of my dad. And this is me being vulnerable right now, but yeah, certainly would love it if at some point he was open with me a little bit more on those stories that he doesn't want to share, or just being open about life in general
Yeah.
would be great. I think we all need that from the people that we care about.
And it's, I don't know if it's the same situation, but it's kind of one of those things where as a parent, I feel like I want to shield my kid from any of the bad stuff that I've ever gone through. But, it's like it's important for them to know that we're human. It's important for them to know that we have emotion and, it's okay to express it. What we were kind of brought up in that time. It's like, if you're going to cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Go to your room. If you're going to cry, if you're going to be upset, go to your room. I don't want that for my kid.
No, no,
And it's like,
I don't
I
want
don't
that
want
for
her.
our future. I don't want
No.
that for my kid either. I don't want any child to be
Yeah.
feeling that kind of stress in their environment.
And it's hard enough to understand my own emotion. That's why I continue to get help, is because if anything, me learning more about myself is going to help me teach my son about his emotions and how to regulate a little more and how it's important to know that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to
That's
do all
right.
that as long as it's healthy. If you're one of those people that bottle everything up all the time, I don't want my kid to be punching walls when he's older and showing aggression to the wrong people and stuff like that. There's healthy aggression. Aggression's okay, and that's why martial arts and all that kind of stuff is like important. Find whatever outlet you need in order to get that aggression and that energy out. But
Right.
but yeah, back to Road Home program.
That's
So
right.
we do art therapy, mindfulness. We do yoga. They do. Besides that, they even offer acupuncture. They offer sleep hygiene, which was pretty new to me too. So it's teaching you all the healthy things you need to do, kind of like a routine before bed. Making sure you shut those electronics off and things like that, which, most of us are like that with the phone right before bed, which isn't healthy. And then also we offer chaplain. So we have a chaplain that helps. So he helps with, obviously religion, things like that. But the most important thing and the hardest thing for me was moral injury. So for the people that don't understand moral injury, which I'm sure a lot of the people that listen to your podcast do, but just in case.
Yeah,
So
they might
moral
not.
injury, it's that we're brought up, a lot of us, if we are from religious families like Catholicism, something like that, I mean, they kind of corner the market on guilt. And, it's one of those things where we're taught right from wrong, good and evil, black and white type of scenarios. And then when you have to overstep those lines, it's very hard for you to feel like you're a good person. So he's a retired special forces and just the most down to earth man, and absolutely love him. And he goes by Chaps, but
Yeah.
yeah, moral injury is impactful. And the next thing I want to talk about was the reason for the book. And I mean, I kind of explained the reason, but kind of how we made it and things like that. But fast forwarding a little, the second book, we are going over moral injury because and it happens. I feel like to everybody, you have that conflict, and if someone's there to teach you that it's okay, then it'll help you. But if you don't have that, if people are like, no, it's black and white, right and wrong, follow the rules sort of scenarios, then it's hard later. And so my son came up to me when he was 3 or 4. Can you edit all those? Not. So he came to me when he was 3 or 4, and he accidentally broke something. And Nick, he was like super, super sad. And he was like, Daddy, I'm a bad boy, blah, blah, blah. So I explained to him that he's a good person. He's a good boy, but he made a mistake. And I told him that, and it was like such a quick moment for him. And he just went and watched TV, and everything was like perfect in his world again. But then I sat in it in a while, and I'm like, why can't I give myself that same grace? That's what I don't understand. Is like, I can tell someone else verbatim, you're a good person. It's okay. People make mistakes, blah, blah, blah. But it took me 19 years to forgive myself, which was, too long.
It is a long time.
So I ended up after that thing I told you about from the Chicago Bulls game,
Yeah.
talking to my therapist. I explained what happened, and to my therapist, I said, if I had any goal in life, it would be for my son to never see me break down. And I swear, I thought that was an awesome goal. Kind of like you said, I also didn't grow up with a father that showed a lot of emotion. And so, for me, I just thought that was like the norm. Like that's what needs to be done, kind of that boys don't cry sort of scenario. But, that's not true. And my therapist just made a face. He's just like, and I was like, what? And he's like, well, kind of out of time, but we could talk about it. And I was like, no, that face means we should probably talk about it now. And so he was like, well, you need to figure out an age appropriate way to explain what you're going through to your son. So I love my therapist, and so I brought that home, and I was like, how do you talk to anybody about the worst time in your life? It's hard to open up to like literally anybody,
Right.
let alone a 4-year-old that has never experienced fear. I don't. That was a very hard thing to undertake. Trying to figure out how to explain. Like for me, one of my intrusive thoughts is watching someone burn to death in front of me. So, trying to make that palatable to a 4-year-old was extremely hard. And so what I ended up doing was, as a dad, I love reading to my son. I think that's like universal, right? We just love that connection. And so I was reading to my son a lot, and And these books, the books they're expensive, they're so simple, and they're like, my daddy swims with me, my daddy plays with me. And I was like, I need
Yeah.
to start writing books. Like, this is ridiculous. And so plus when you have PTSD, I feel like, and I thought I was by myself, but I guess this is like a thing that happens to a lot of people that have PTSD. But it's normal to feel like you're not going to live an extremely long life, and so for me, I wanted to write some books so that my son had something tangible when I wasn't around that showed how much I love him. And so I started writing some, and I started getting them illustrated off of Fiverr, and I'm still waiting for the illustrations 2 years later, even though they already got paid. Kind of one of those learn life lessons, but anyway. So I started writing down my thoughts for this one. I had to make it rhyme, which is extremely hard to try to get your like impactful thoughts out when you have to make it rhyme. But I tried to figure out what to do. I had these pictures in my head on what I wanted to look like, and then I reached out to a childhood friend. Went through high school, oh no, kindergarten all the way through high school with him. His name's Nick Atchison. He's the illustrator. So I reached out to Nick, and I was like, I don't know if you've ever done this before, because I knew he was a talented artist, but the stuff he does is more like graphic comic books, graphic stuff, not really child safe, maybe for some of them. And so I reached out to him, and I didn't know. I mean, I haven't connected with him for a long time, and he has 5 kids, and I also knew he was in the army, but I didn't know in what capacity. And so he was with Third ID crossing over into Iraq and into 2003. And I was attached to Third ID crossing over. So I was probably, I mean, obviously, if anyone, I don't know what they showed on the news, but when we crossed into Iraq, we had thousands of trucks. I mean, it was a lot. In the front had all the U.S. reporters, and then it was all the other countries. And I think my truck, I had an Israeli reporter. So I don't know where they fall within the distinctions of reporters, but I think we were toward the middle. I felt like we were kind of in the middle of the convoy going in. But so I mean, we basically we saw very similar things. We experienced very similar things. So when I brought this up to him, he was like, "Hell yeah, I want to be part of this." So because he's my brother, because he also has this, I want him to feel as much of a part of this. So I was like, I want to make this a series. I want to make this like a big thing. I want you to be a part of this with me. So we're working on the second one, and but the first one, there's some impactful things, and I didn't know that it was going to. Like I said, I made these for my son. I didn't make this. I didn't want to put this out for everybody. This was just going to be an expensive way of telling my son I love him and trying to just explain to him what was going on in my head. I never thought I didn't want to be a writer. I didn't want to be a children's author. But I searched all over and I couldn't find anything that matched with what was going on in my head. There's another book out there, probably the main one that I saw, and it's a good book if it relates to you, but I don't yell at my son. That doesn't relate to me.
Mm.
When I have issues with PTSD, it's more of like a vacant. I go somewhere and I go somewhere else in my head. I might. Normally, I'm a very happy, smiley person that talks way too much, and that's why I like this job because that's what I do for a living. But I'm quiet. I'm quiet. I'm reserved. I'm in my own head. I'm somewhere else. I'm sad. There's just a lot of different emotions, but anger is not one of them. And unless I'm driving, then then I
That's
want
hard
to
for
murder
all of
like
us.
4 or 5
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I was like, I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. I just wanted something to help me, kind of like a greeting card. I was never that person that went and grabbed a blank greeting card and just poured my heart out on my own. I needed to find someone else's words that matched how I felt. And that's what I wanted in a book, and they didn't have it. So when we wrote this and we were at the end, and Nick was like, we need to put this out for other people to see. So a couple of my friends saw it. They were military, and they're like, man, you need to put this out. And so it's been getting some pretty good traction without, I don't know how to self promote. I don't know how to do any of this stuff, to be honest. And I don't really care. I mean, I want it to get in the hands of people that need it. So I've been working with Wounded Warrior Project and some other organizations to try to get this out to the hands of service members that can benefit. And the nice thing is, my executive director from Road Home has been very supportive, and the whole team has, and so he's been allowing us to like give some out to the intensive outpatient program, veterans that are service members that come through, and getting hugs and stuff like that, from them has been amazing, and just hearing that. I remember the first time I gave any of them books, I gave a couple books, and the second day someone was like, "Hey, I heard you have a book. Can I have one?" I was like, "Sure." So I gave him one, and the other guys were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Don't read it here. Wait till you get back to your, wait till you back to your apartment, because that's one of the going back to what we do when we fly them in from anywhere in the world. Not only do we pay for the flight, the housing, the food, basically everything,
It's
but they
incredible.
also get like an efficiency apartment for the time that they're there. I mean, their own kitchen, living room, bedroom, bathroom, everything. And there's like a group room where there's snacks and games and everything. And then it's all up to you and how much you actually want to be involved with other people. But I think all of us kind of are very similar in the way that when it comes to camaraderie and all that stuff, I mean, we miss that from the military. That's probably the best thing that I feel like happened for me, at least, was that camaraderie. You miss it. And like I wanted to stay in Iraq because my team was still there, you know. And so anyway, so you get to pick how much you actually want to be connected with everybody else. But I would say for the most part, when they leave, they have like text chains and they stay in contact for a long time afterward and all that. So it's pretty amazing. But we also work with organizations that will pay their mortgage or their bills or anything while they get help, which so we try to just take down all the barriers possible to make it as easy as possible to get that help that they need for them and their families. And so that brings me back. So the IOP, when some of them are getting books, one of them, and I think a lot of us might be married to someone that, maybe this isn't their first country. And so mental health has looked a little different from other countries. And my mom's from Ecuador, and she still says, your mental problems. She doesn't understand PTSD, any of that stuff. And so one of the people through our intensive outpatient program said she used it with her husband because he was from Italy. And just the simple images and the simple words and everything just made it very easy to tell a story. And we hear that a story is worth 1,000 words, and that or a picture is worth 1,000 words. And Nick just was able to depict every single thing that was in my head. He helped me water some down because, like I said, that one intrusive thought, that specific one was very hard to try to water down, but he did a great job. But the most impactful one, if you happen to see the book, is like, and I think this resonates for most parents, at least maybe men. I haven't asked women, but I'm assuming everybody kind of feels this way. But you don't just automatically know how to be a parent, right? And there are times where things aren't going right, and you just like feel like you're a failure. And so it shows the bear. I made them bears because I like bears and I feel like I'm pretty happy and friendly, but I can get mad, and so I resemble a bear, I feel like. But so this bear is looking in the mirror and he sees like this war torn veteran, he sees like just a messed up face and he's in his camis and all that. And the son's looking at him. There's a little thought bubble that shows him as a superhero, and that's how he's dressed. And that's what it's about. Like just being there. Your kids love you. You got to give yourself grace. And so after this book was done, and I feel like what I try to do with this book is my background is in nutrition and dietetics as my undergrad. And we had a lot of books, and I'm sure you've seen them because they were super popular, at least for a while, that eat this, not that book.
Yeah. Yeah. Seen tons of that.
So I tried to do something similar. Like when you see fireworks, you see this. When I see fireworks, I see this. And try to just make it as simple as possible.
Mm,
And he loves it.
that's
He
very
loves it
simple.
now. The first time he saw it, he was like, "Daddy, is that me?" I said, "Yeah." And the second time we tried to read it like a month or two later, And because I know he's getting older, he's learning more stuff, so it's going to hit him different throughout time. And so he he was like, "Daddy, I really like this book, but it's sad."
Yeah.
So, and it is. But I mean, I go over like the things I think, and I'm not a clinician, and that made me feel super happy when the clinicians in our organization, and they're amazing. They're professors at Rush University Medical Center. They're clinicians with us. They're fantastic at what they do. They're humble. They're just very, very nice people. They just dress with like button downs or polos. You'll never see anyone in a lab coat. Our building doesn't look like a medical facility. And like all that, we try to take into account everything. We listen to the veteran to tailor it to make it look. It looks like a spa. That's what it looks like. And so it's really nice. You'll have to come see it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, dude, I want to check it out so bad. I haven't been able to. I want to see the hall that you were talking about, that with
Oh
all of
yeah,
those, with all
yeah. The art
all the
therapy.
imagery. Oh my
The
gosh.
nice part is, especially if they're in the area, I'll make sure that when we do it. But we do traveling art installations of the masks. So when the masks are completed and the intensive outpatient program is done, the cohort, they get the option to do whatever they want with their mask. You can give it away, you can keep it, you can break it, you can throw it away, you can do whatever you want. A lot of them, a lot of service members will end up writing a little what was going through their head when they thought this, and they donate it back to us. And then they've been professionally, mounted to these things that you can twist around and see the whole thing. And we bring them to different colleges in the area, and so that people can see them, which is important. Like there's less and less of us, veterans out there. I think it's like 6% or something. So it's likely that you can meet somebody that has no friends or family that were military, which is crazy. So there are people out there that have no understanding of what we've gone through. And so that kind of stuff is impactful so people can understand like what, when you're throwing people out there and you're like, let's do this, let's do that, how impactful it is when they come home.
Yeah.
But, I talk about hypervigilance, hyperarousal, negative self talk, intrusive thoughts, panic attacks, nightmares. And then the most important part of my book, and I hope that's the theme that people get when they see it, is like the importance of getting help. It's hard enough to reach out for help, but I feel like even harder to find the right help. And if you're one of those people like me and like many others that you try to get help and you do that first move when, all right, I'm reaching out for help. I'm finally reaching out for help. And then you get shut down, or they throw you into a modality that just might not resonate with you, and then you just give up completely. You're like, this isn't going to work for me. All this, and if no one's there to tell you, give it another shot, try something different, you might never do it. You might think that I'm different than everybody else. Nobody understands me. This won't help me. Nothing can help me. And I was like that too, and it's horrible to feel that way. But there's so many different. I mean, my first time getting help as a young person, 26 maybe, was prolonged exposure. They wanted me just to repeat some of the pain points that I had onto a videotape thing, and then just listen to it over and over and over and over and over. And I couldn't do it. And it's an impactful one. And I mean, it does. There are studies out there. It does help, but I feel like that's like 0 to 100. That's hard, especially if it's the first time you've ever done any kind of therapy. I had to be eased into it. Finally, when I got help, I went through group therapy, which I'm glad I did first because I was so put off on therapy. I was not trying to do it whatsoever. And someone was like, well, why don't we just ease into it? Let's do group therapy. And so I sat in a room and I was quiet. I was in the back. I'm normally not in the back. I like talking, so I like to be in the front. And so the whole room was Vietnam vets and then myself. And I'm like, I have absolutely nothing in common with these guys. That's what was going through my head. I was young. I was dumb. And so then they were like, guys, this group, we don't share war stories. We just talk about what's going through your lives now and how you guys are dealing. So then they like asked me, how do you shop for groceries? I said, I shop at like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. I know what I want. I go in and I get out. And I see everyone else like this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then we start talking more and more. And then I see all these common things with everybody else. And it doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter what you went through. It really doesn't even matter if you went to war. And that's the thing, is finding those the tribes, finding those social organizations you can get part of, so you can get that camaraderie, that brotherhood, that sisterhood, all that stuff that you missed. And so now I'm in the American Legion. I'm the commander of my VFW. I'm the senior vice of my district. I'm, a national aide de camp for VFW. I mean, I'm very passionate about all these organizations, but trying to explain to the younger vets, now that I'm a little older, I guess I'm not a young vet anymore, but trying to explain to the younger vets that it's like, I know we're not all the same age, but like, just talk to somebody, because, and these guys that are, I have friends that are 80 years old, but I guarantee if I ever called any of them, no matter what time, they would answer. And that's what you need. And that's why these things are important. But to circle back so I can finish up my story, sorry, I get off on
Oh,
tangents.
I just want to add to that. I mean, you need them; they need you too.
Oh, 100%.
There are so many generations of people and veterans that don't have someone to talk to, and they just want to have a conversation. They just want to connect with people, whether it's their family member or somebody else from another generation of military service. Oh, hey, it's time to introduce somebody here.
He wants to say hi. He's being shy now.
That's
He's
okay.
never
That's all
shy.
right.
It's all right.
Maybe another time.
Yeah, but
Can I get that?
no.
But that's the little man right there.
That's the little guy. So he's
Oh
the
man,
reason.
yeah.
But so finishing up the book. So, the importance of getting help is the main theme there. And so the book was done, and then finally people convinced us to try to publish it. We self-published it on Amazon. It's called Instead of Sheep, a soldier's way of explaining PTSD to his son. And so when I was hearing about it from the IOP, they were like, I love the book, but I had to change it from daddy to mommy. And then I was like, you know what? My sister was in the military. I have a lot of female veterans that I look up to. I've had amazing women in my life that are super strong, and I was like, you know what? They're forgotten too much. And it happens a lot. My sister would go out with her husband, and she would say, do you have a military discount? They immediately look at him and say, thank you for your service. And it's horrible. And I know we've been working on it slowly, and there's more and more women, and that's amazing. And I hope they all get valued as much as they should. But that being said, my junior vice of the VFW, she spent 20 years in the Air Force. And I asked her if she had PTSD, and she said yes. And she has a 12-year-old, so we're working with her on telling her story as well. So hopefully that will help out, so that mommies don't have to change the wording.
That's awesome.
So after the book was published in the end of November, December rolled around right after Christmas, December 28th. I had a heart attack and almost died. And
that's right.
It was weird. It's weird, man. Like, I was working out with my Marine buddies. That's probably what happened. I was working out with a Marine. That's probably what killed me, or almost killed me. No, just kidding.
Those guys are nuts.
But
all you soldiers are nuts.
Yeah, yeah. So we were swimming and then went to the sauna, and they think the sauna broke something off my artery. And so I'm driving home, and then my jaw started to hurt. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. Like, the chest pain I thought was just from swimming, because I haven't, raced someone swimming in a long time. But my jaw didn't make sense. So I Googled it, because of course Google, tells you all the answers. So I Googled it, chest tightness and jaw pain, and everything was like heart attack, heart attack, heart attack. So I was going to drive to the VA hospital. Like I said in the beginning, the VA is all I knew. So I'm driving there, and that little voice that saved me in Iraq, that little voice that made me move a little over and save my life, was like, you're going to die. So I was like, I drove to the ER, and so it was 6 minutes away, and drove to the ER. I started sweating bullets. It's December 28th. It was cold out, had all the windows down. I'm texting my ex-wife, like, I'm having a heart attack. If I die, tell my son I love him. Like, it was rough. And so it's like when you're out and about and you have to use the washroom, and you're like, wait till I get home. And as soon as you pull in your driveway, it's like an emergency. That's what happened. So like, I got to the ER, I pulled in, found the first spot. And as soon as I stepped out of the car, like, my legs were done. it was hard to walk. I felt like an elephant with daggers was sitting on my chest. It was the worst pain I ever experienced. I walked in and they were like, "How can we help you?" I'm like, "I'm pretty sure I'm having a heart attack." And they were like, "How'd you get here?" I was like, "I drove. I was going to drive to the VA." They're like, "That's a soldier thing to do right there." And
Uh,
I looked around and there was a huge amount of people in the ER. And I was like, "Should I sit down?" They were like, "No." They were like, "You're going to get seen right now." So,
mm,
I'm waiting and I'm apologizing to the doctors while they're like getting all everything off and they're shaving me and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I was like, "I'm really sorry, guys. I know that this sometimes it's gas. I hope I'm not wasting your time." They're like, "You're having a heart attack, man." And while I'm waiting there and thinking, it was surreal because in the past, all these years, if in my darkest times, it was like if I was telling anybody, don't worry, I'm okay, nothing's gonna happen. I would never do anything because who would watch my dog when I was a single guy? It's like I would never take my own life. Who would watch my dog? My dog was the reason I was around. I have him tattooed on me, and
mhm.
then he stayed alive until my son was born, and then he passed. And I was like, in my hard times, I was like, well, I would never do anything because of my son. And that theme is the same for the longest time. Is like I'm living for someone else,
Mm,
and that's that mindfulness, bringing it back. That mindfulness is like when I was having the heart attack, I was praying and I was like, just give me more time. Like I'm doing good things. I'm helping people. I That was the first time in 19 years that I actually 20 years that I actually want to be around for myself. So now that I lived, like I made a huge amount of changes, and I'm living for myself. I'm taking care of myself. I see that validity of the mindfulness that you have to put the mask on yourself before you help other people. And now I see it. Before it was like I would give everything out of my cup and have nothing left for me. So yeah, that was impactful. I wouldn't advise anyone else to have a heart attack to have that epiphany, but yeah, I mean, if you could figure out another way to get to that point, it feels amazing to actually want to be here
my gosh. I'm so glad you're here. I know that little guy is super glad that you're here too,
for
to be able
sure.
to talk about this, man. I Gosh, that's just a roller coaster.
It's been a crazy year, man. It's 5 days away from being a year, so it's been a weird year. I got married. I have a blended family now. It's just a lot of and just put it out there. No one else knows. Like, and I got a compliment the other day when I was meeting with somebody, that they were like, "Wow, you're an awesome example to veterans on how you could struggle, and then you're doing amazing. You're helping people." And then that next day, I lost it. Like, it was the first time in a year and a half that I had a rough day. It was bad, and I reached out to Vets for Warriors, amazing organization. They're out of the East Coast from Rutgers University, and every single person that works there, it's peer support. Every person that works there is a veteran or active guard or reserve, and I believe the person that runs it is a brigadier general, and he had two sons, and one was killed in action in Afghanistan, and the other one took his own life. So obviously, he's very passionate about mental health, and you can feel it. I called when I was in a good mood in the past. So I've been working with them for a little while, but as an outreach coordinator, I always give their information out. But I actually needed them, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it because I don't like the 988 number. To be honest, I don't like if you're going to
Oh
hurt
yeah,
yourself, do this. If you're feeling bad, I don't want to go through a whole bunch of numbers. I just want someone to answer the phone. And
sure.
so when I called this place, literally, someone answers. I'm like, "How are you? What's going on, brother?" And and I'm like, I'm having a rough time, and I lost it. And this person just brought me back down to a place where I was okay enough, where then I reached out for help. So I'm getting help again. So it's like I said, we're all works in progress. You just have to give yourself grace, and that was something that I never did before. And now I realize that it's okay to fall down. So that's what we're doing. But you know, just to circle back for Road Home program, if anybody wants more information, the ways to get it. If you want to do an intake, and you can do outpatient, you can do intensive outpatient. We offer, and then in Illinois, we even offer uh, children's therapy, which a lot of people don't understand. There's secondary PTSD as well. That's important to make sure like we're doing the best we can for our children. And that's the reason, I think most of the reason why I've ever gotten help is for other people. Now I'm doing it for myself, but in the past it was for other people. That as soon as I got out, I forced myself to go to fireworks. All my friends thought I was crazy. They're like, "Why do you do it when you end up leaving?" And I'm like, "Because one day I'm going to have a kid, and one day I want to be able to watch fireworks with them." So I always do this stuff for other people, and that was the important thing. So knowing that Road Home program helps families as well is super important. They have couple counseling, marriage counseling, children's counseling, and then they do the intensive outpatient program. And you don't have to have insurance. You don't have to have a dime in your pocket. Any era, any discharge status, which is a huge one too, because we found that a lot of service members that have dishonorable or other than honorable probably has something to do with mental health. So
Yeah,
we don't
no
discriminate.
doubt.
Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you're not going to behave properly if your mind's not right. If you
yeah,
don't
100%.
have your head on straight, you're going to act out because you need help. And then you get dishonorably discharged and
Yeah.
you still don't have the help you need and now you can't get benefits.
Or drinking problems,
Yeah,
and it might not be, it's all involved with mental health, I feel like, and,
that's right.
finding an outlet, unfortunately, and how to hide from your own emotions and feelings, and then you get in trouble for drinking. But yeah, Road Home Program, all spelled out, .org is the way to get more information. And it takes you to a landing page. You can just say more information, do an intake. It's so simple. Or
Okay.
312-942-8387. 312-942 vets. So we try to make it as easy as possible to get some help. But
It's very
I
easy.
would encourage anybody, if they're even thinking about it, if they haven't done it, do it. I mean, like I said, I fell down again, but like for about a year and a half, I was doing amazing, and that was the best I've felt in 19 years. And there's just a lot of different things that led me to that, but I'm glad I did it. And I wish I would have done it a long time ago, but sometimes I feel like you gotta have a little bit of pain to experience to really appreciate when something's good. It's like, you have to have the rain to appreciate the sun sort of scenario.
It's absolutely that. We're going to make sure that information's in the show notes. How do people find your book? And
It's on Amazon right now, and it's just Instead of Sheep. If you type in Instead of Sheep, you'll find it. And the cover is really cute. It's a bear. Let me grab it. It's like right in front of me.
yeah,
Hold
absolutely.
on. So it's a bear. That's why we did Instead of Sheep, because instead of dreaming about sheep jumping over or trying to go to sleep jumping over a fence, it's turning into Humvees and tanks and everything. So the one picture I was telling you that was super impactful to me. I'm sorry I didn't have this on me before.
Oh, it's okay.
Was that picture?
Oh yeah.
I feel like it resonates a lot. It's like you're trying to do the best you can, but sometimes you feel like a failure. But your kid still feels you're amazing, thinks you're the best thing ever. So, you know, I'm
Man.
I'm just glad I'm getting help for him, and now I'm glad I'm getting help for me. And it makes me feel really good when I do see people that are struggling like I was a couple of years ago, and just letting them know that it will get better. And it's finding the right place, finding the right people, and just reaching out for help that's necessary. And
Yeah.
then you can change your whole life around. It's amazing.
We're all going through something. We all could use some kind of help, somebody to help bring us along at different degrees of intensity. It's not like everybody's way up here, like I'm in the worst possible mindset. There's various levels of mental health that need to be accounted for. So
Yeah, and I mean, people think that, especially people that don't really understand PTSD, they just think that PTSD PTSD is, when people are like freaking out or jumping behind couches or anything like that. It's PTSD is just a normal response to an abnormal situation. And as soon as I learned that, it made me feel a lot better. It just these are all normal feelings. A lot of them are normal feelings. It's just you're in the wrong place.
that's right.
It just doesn't make sense anymore. So it's just important to get help so people can help you understand what you're going through mentally and how you can just change your perspective a little bit and it'll get better.
And it just makes such a big impact on how you can enjoy life after
Totally.
you've been able to get through some of those things. So,
For
well,
sure.
Matthias, I know he's ready to make cookies. It's
Yeah,
cookie
we're
day.
making cookies today. Yeah, I'm
So
excited.
it's the day before Christmas Eve. It's when Matthias celebrates Christmas. So it's an important day for the family. But man, I'm so glad that you came on today to talk about this. I learned some things from our conversations that we've had, and it's also inspiring me to go another step further with my own mental health. So I really appreciate that.
I love hearing that, man. And thank you for this platform. I mean, like I said in the past, I don't think I said it now, but I said it to you before. But in the past, I never thought anyone wanted to listen to this kind of stuff because I always thought, you have the Jockos and you have all these special forces that just did amazing things and have stories that are insane. And it seems like
Yeah,
they're like really boastful and proud about that stuff. I'm just a normal guy that was put in a weird situation and just trying to figure out how to get back to like how I used to be, like just normal, whatever that is. But
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, the show is this show has a little bit of everything. The show has a little bit about veterans that start businesses, veterans that are trying to advance in their career, and sometimes before you can do either of those things, you got to get your head on straight.
100%.
So this certainly has. I certainly want to focus on mental health throughout this show. So glad you're here to show that, and those other guys are they're inspiring in their own ways. You
100%.
know,
Yeah, I
they
agree.
and but yeah, man, this is a little bit more anything goes. So,
That's awesome. I
but
appreciate it, brother.
happy holidays to you, sir. Happy holidays to everyone. Hope you all get something out of this, and reach out to Matthias if you have questions about his book, if you have questions about the road home, or you just need somebody to talk to. He's there for that. So,
Yeah, my website for the book is insteadofsheep.net, all spelled out.
thank you. That'll be in the notes as well. Perfect.
Oh, thank you, sir. All right.
Awesome. We conclude this episode of Amplify Veterans. I want to emphasize the importance of supporting our veterans in times of need. If you or someone you know is struggling, remember, help is always available. The Veterans Crisis Line provides confidential support 24/7. Reach out to them by dialing 988 and then select option 1. You can also go to veteranscrisisline.net for more information.